Millipede, the 1982 arcade sequel to the 1980 arcade classic Centipede, released in 1989 for your Nintendo Entertainment System courtesy of HAL, and boy doesn't this title theme sound familiar. Anyway, for those who have never played Millipede, it's a game where you control a blaster thing and have to destroy the millipede that's rushing through the magical mushroom forest, all the while avoiding spiders, worms, and other critters that might block your way. Essentially, it's a carbon copy of Centipede, except Millipede tosses in more bugs to kill you as well as dynamite scattered throughout the forest. Destroying these sticks of DDTs will cause them to explode, obviously, and if timed right can be a devastating weapon against the forces of insects. Now there's actually other little bits that happen when you shoot certain things. Killing the worms slows everything down for a short term because I guess worms have control over the space-time continuum or something. Sometimes the forest will undergo a period of growth and decay, drastically reshaping the playfield before you. There's a couple other bits that also happens, but suffice it to say, there's more going on in Millipede than there is in Centipede, and that makes it a bit more of a challenge, but also makes it more of an enjoyable little title than its predecessor. Millipede in general actually plays pretty nicely on the NES. The overall gameplay, for the most part, is almost on par with that of the arcade original. Perhaps somewhat of a touch easier in comparison, but nothing within cakewalk territory, and like most early NES games, you have your choice of either game A or the more challenging game B to test your gaming mettle. Control over your blaster is pretty solid despite its relative quick speed, and while it will never match the precision and feel of the original trackball controls, HAL did a serviceable enough job of making the controls work well enough that you can almost never really blame any faults on gameplay on that particular aspect. As you could probably tell on screen, Millipede's action takes place within a little square area while the rest of the screen has this greenish, bluish, tiny brick background thing where your score and other bits of information reside. Because that's perhaps the best way to try and fit in a game that was originally vertically oriented into a television screen. You squish it even further into a tiny square. Truly an ingenious and inspired solution. Okay, not really. The green frame is loud and obnoxious. But settling that minor quibble aside, the game itself looks fine. Everything more or less matches the things you'd find in the arcade. You can clearly make out the millipede, the spiders, the mushrooms, thingamabobs, and doohickeys. In that regard, it's just fine. I just wish the overall layout was less of an eyesore, but that's just me. Millipede does a fair emulation or imitation of the arcade sounds and noises. It sounds close to almost arcade quality, if not arcade perfect. You can recognize some of the sounds, but other sounds will not sound so good sounding. That last bit sounded a bit redundant. And speaking of redundant, we have this amazing title song that I'm sure I've heard elsewhere. Possibly in some other Atari game, or maybe they played this at a Leafs game or something. I don't know, and more importantly, I don't care. Overall, Millipede got a pretty solid, pretty enjoyable conversion on the NES, even with the small playfield and the ugly green border, as well as the lack of a traditional trackball control. This nails the core elements that made Millipede a thrilling little arcade classic. All in all, a superb edition of Millipede being played on the NES. Good stuff.